Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Cleave to Antiquity. My name is Ben, and I am joined today by a special guest, Father Deacon Ananias. What's going on, brother?
Hey, what's up? Um, Thank you so much for having me again and again. Let us pray to the Lord. By the way, how's the sound, guys? I did find some headphones, so I might actually try that so we don't get any feedback.
It sounds good.
What do you think?
I think it already sounds good. I don't hear any echoes at all.
No echoes?
Mm-mm. No, we're good.
I feel like I'm
Yeah,
like a DJ.
yeah, there you go.
What do you guys want me to play?
We're gonna do an online concert right here. We'll do like
You never know with these the sound, so that's why I was asking.
yeah. Start playing some Prodigy and do like Fire Starter. All right, so
All right, my
today's
friends.
today's show Today's show is going to be a Q&A. So for those in the chat, this is kind of how this works. If you want to ask a question to Father Deacon, put it in the chat with a Q in front. I'm going to be going through the chat, starring all of your questions. Make sure that they're appropriate, please. I'm not gonna pull up like troll stuff. So, put a Q in front. Ask your question. We'll answer them in the order that they're received. If you want to skip in line, you can send a super chat, and I'll answer those first, just to give you a little thanks for supporting the show. But other than that, go ahead and send in your questions and put a Q in front. So I've got a couple already. We can dive right in whenever you're ready, Father Deacon.
Let's go.
All right, let's see. Lax asks, what is the difference between presuppositionalism and evidentialism? I epistemically presuppose Cleve is getting beard mogged, and I see evidence that Cleve is getting beard mogged. Nice.
That's a great question. Without going too, if I could just give like a kind of a simple answer without going too far into detail. Evidentialism, so it's not that, presuppositionalism, it's not like it's a monolithic, kind of everybody has the same kind of idea within presuppositionalism. But for the most part, presuppositionalists aren't opposed to evidence. What they're saying is that the things that we presuppose, there's nobody that's presuppositionless or positionless. And that colors the way that we actually see evidence. So the best way to kind of distinguish between the two is, they both look at evidence. One's kind of looking at more of a meta level, the presuppositionalist, because there are no kind of brute facts that you could we just look at the evidence and just determine it and build up from there. So typically evidentialism kind of has this naive view of evidence and justification that oftentimes, not all presuppositionalists, because not everybody's the same, is going to say that's not going to work. I think the best way you can kind of see, even Van Til had kind of talked about this, that with the crackers in the pantry fallacy, the way that you look for something is not the same. The way that you look at evidence is, there's no just kind of neutral position we can all start from. So we need to kind of roll it back and look at, well, what sort of kind of presuppositions and worldview would ground the various things that we want and have justifications for the evidence that we use. That's basically it.
Johnny asks, could the prayer in the garden and Jesus' subsequent death be looked at as instructions / parallel for a confession before receiving the Eucharist?
The prayer in the garden, like if there's, Lord, Father, take this cup from me. Could it be a parallel? I don't know. That's a good, I'm going to say, I don't know on that. I mean, obviously it's a preparation for death, first and foremost, about what Christ is going to, right? He's preparing himself. But the Eucharist is resurrectional. So I'm kind of thinking that they're not as connected as you might want to say. I mean, it's all connected because it's Orthodoxy, but I actually don't know. That's a good question. I'm leaning towards probably not, because one is a preparation for death and the other one is a resurrectional celebration.
Got it. Looks like we're getting we got a bunch of people sent over here by Jim Bob. Thanks, Jim Bob. Awesome. Yeah, we got a surge and some new viewers here. So for those that are new and are watching the stream for the first time, we're doing a Q&A. So if you want to ask Father Deacon questions, send them into the chat with a Q in front, and I'm starring them as I go through the chat, and we'll bring them up here and answer them. Here's a question from Nutmeg. Question for FDA: if God is unchanging, how do we reconcile ourselves to God considering that fact?
Depends what you mean, as Jordan Peterson says. Depends what you mean. No. God's essence doesn't change, but he's not a static orb in the Platonic heavens. Is it St. Maximus that says God is ever moving rest? To kind of break that kind of dialectic. God is personal. He can change in relation to, right? He can answer our prayers and stuff like that. So it's important what we mean by that. When we say he's unchanging, there's no passivity. There's nothing that acts on God, right? His essence doesn't change. But God acts in the world. He actualizes powers. He answers our prayers and stuff like that. So I think this is kind of a lot of holdover from Western thought. You have this in kind of, Actus Purus. You have, I mean, God forbid, it's almost Origenistic too, that the unchanging orb, the impersonal kind of force, like our God is a living God. He talks to us, he speaks to us. So it just depends what we mean by change. And so as Orthodox, we qualify. There's nothing that acts upon God, conditions him, and his essence doesn't change, but he can really respond to us. He can do things, he can change things with regards to us. Good question, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, while we have all these people here, you want to plug the conference that's coming up in November?
Oh yeah. Let's see. Do you have the link to the conference?
I could probably pull up that trailer video, maybe. Let's see. What was it called again?
Yeah.
It's
Athens and Jerusalem. Now,
Athens
don't buy
Jerusalem.
tickets to Athens and Jerusalem because that's really expensive and you will miss the conference. It is in Palm Coast, Florida. It's St. Nicholas Ropor Parish in Palm Coast with Metropolitan Jonah, Father Vlad, myself, Jay Dyer, Jamie, and I almost said Dr. Deacon, Dr. David Patrick Harry.
Here, let's do this. I'll play the trailer. How about that?
Yes, let's do it.
What is the relationship between reason and revelation, between philosophy and faith? For the Orthodox Church, the answer is clear. Christianity was not born in the lecture halls of Greek philosophers, but in the encounter with the living God. Yet the Church did not ignore philosophy. She baptized it using the language of reason to proclaim truths that reason alone could never reach. So, what is the Orthodox view of philosophy? What role does human reason play in the life of faith? Does Orthodoxy believe in natural theology? And what is the difference between knowledge about God and knowing Him? Join us for an unforgettable conference exploring these timeless questions and encounter the answer, not just in words, but in worship, in truth, in the experience of the Holy Trinity. Come and discover the true faith, the faith that established the universe.
Yeah, that'll be awesome, man.
Yeah, that was amazing. Whoever wrote that blurb, that was really, really good.
Nice. Yeah, well, pretty much all of Ortho Twitter is going to be there. It's going to be all the speakers will be there, but in attendance, I'm going to be there. Luigi will be there. Mario's going to be there. Everybody's going to be there. So if you want to come hang out with the boys, come out to the conference.
And there's going to be some music. I'm going to play with Neil and not Neil Young, but the other Neil, and Justin Marler and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that and the fellowship too.
Yeah, Neil's a cool guy. He's actually how I found out at first about the conference. So that'll be cool.
Right on.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. All right, let me see where I was at in here. But yeah, make sure you guys go to the conference. That'll be a lot of fun. You're going to notice there's a lot of people that you probably recognize going to be there, especially if you follow the Orthodox scene and stuff like that. So, let's see. What other questions do I have? Templar, cheers, gentlemen. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let's see. Every single stream we do together. every stream. Do you want me to grab this one? Because I kind of answered it the last time with the
and then I'll say something at the end, but go ahead and take that.
Sure. With the true Orthodox question, I'll say this. You know, in almost every schism, it's like a little bit of truth, a little bit of a whole lot of falsity. If you were to look at how the church was restored all throughout history, anytime there was some big crisis and how, God's hand kind of, played a part in the conflict, it was never to set up like parallel jurisdictions and to split off and to go and kind of do your own thing. And, now we're the actual true bishops of this territory, so on and so forth. That's never been how it was done in history. And there's no canonical reason to do so either. They'll point to the 1983 Rocor anathemas when they were separated from the, I believe it's 1983 Rocor anathemas when they were separated from the MP at the time. And they'll say, well, look, these anathemas actually would anathematize Rocor itself, so on and so forth. Well, that would be true if those anathemas were not curtailed in the reunification documents with the MP. So there's no canonical reason for separation. It's just kind of like we don't like ABC 123 scandal, or there's like a stained glass, like hammer and sickle somewhere. So that justifies us setting up parallel jurisdictions. That's not accurate. That's not correct. I mean, granted, there's a lot that could be said about ecumenism, so on and so forth. But I mean, you could also just fight that stuff from the inside. There's no reason to separate yourself from the church that Christ established in order to fight that kind of stuff. But go ahead.
I recommend Father Peter Hears has done some videos on that. Also, Father John Whiteford addresses that, in which the canons that they refer to on that, like a lot of people, they cherry pick. They don't actually read on. It's not kind of contextualized. There is no historic precedent. They deny some of our most like wonderful saints. And I also thought about too, it's kind of a self-defeating position. It's almost like this Protestant puritanicalism. Like if you look at it and touch it, now you've got the disease too, right? That's like, well, if that's true, then there is no valid apostolic succession. Like
Right.
we've all been like at some point touching, historically a heretical bishop before they're excommunicated. So the whole thing will crumble. Furthermore, if that's the way you deal with it, it really undermines synodality in the councils. Like, why do we need them?
Mhm.
And furthermore, it's just this kind of vague painted brush of what's the mechanism by which we determine a heresy serious enough to schism from?
Right.
Who decides that? Because there's always a problem in the church. Like but you're right. There's no historical precedent at all. The fathers don't speak that way. I mean, it's really anti-orthodox. And the other thing too, once you spend enough time, like especially clergy with experience, it's demonic. I know I've kicked the hornet's nest on that, but the fathers talk about that. There's nothing more demonic than the spirit of heresy and schism. And I don't think they're theological heretics, but they're schismatics, and that's a demonic. It infects the people that I talk to. There's a sort of kind of demonic possession in those groups. I can pick up on it right away. And so, God help them, repent and become Orthodox. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I would like to add to that is if you are a part of one of these groups, rejoin the church. There's no reason to separate yourself from the church that Christ established, that you couldn't fight from the inside. Yes, I mean, I acknowledge I've done plenty of videos on some of the issues within the Orthodox Church. That was my entire brand for a while, doing debates with Roman Catholics, doing debates with Orthodox, so on and so forth. I'm aware of the warts, but that's not a good enough reason to keep me from the church that Christ established, right? There are things that always, like you just said, there's always going to be issues to work on. Return to the church, receive the sacraments, labor from within, suffer with us. That is the call. Take up your cross, right? So if you are true Orthodox, if you're a part of one of these groups, return to the church. That's ultimately where my heart's at, man. Let's get in the fight together. Let's not tear each other apart always.
And also
question.
too, I mean, I should actually look and see. I don't know off the top of my head how many GOC or TO parishes are there in the United States. So you have Etna in California. You have the one in Colorado. I'm sure there's some on the East Coast. They're far and few between, which tells me that most of the people arguing with me online, I just like to be like, are you going to, where are you going to church? Like, are you just in your head? You have this ethereal, platonic kind of ideal of orthodoxy and you worship in your head. And you'll find that most of these people, not all of them, most of them are just keyboard warriors with autism, and they're not even going to liturgy, which is sad. That's why it's like, well, you know what? Yeah, there's problems in the Orthodox Church. Come in, though, that we're not Donatists. There's an element of Donatism in there, too. That the sins, both personal moral sins or heretical sins, and heresy is a sin, by the way, invalidates the priestly order or apostolic. That's straight up Donatism. It's like, no, there's problems in there, but God's divine energies and healing graces operate despite the failures of men too. And the other thing I was thinking about too, it's a type of vigilantism. Everybody deserves their day in court, even if they're guilty, right? It's like, yeah, okay, but it's like, it's an analogy to, well, the courts are corrupt too, So I'm taking it in my hands to actually sentence this person and hang them. You can't do that. And that's the analogy with the schismatics, is they don't allow people their day in court because they're like, well, the courts are corrupt too. So it lies on me, the last true Orthodox, to solve this problem. Hey, can I give a shout out real quick?
Yeah,
Dave the Philippian donates $10. I'll see you guys in Florida in a few weeks. God bless. Thank you, David. Justin Hanley, $10. I don't have any questions. Tell Cleve I said shut up and take my money, and God bless you.
Nice. Where are you seeing those chats at? I don't see them on my end.
Hey, Cleve, don't worry about that.
Oh, okay.
No, it's just coming into my Streamlab.
Oh, nice. All right. Geralt says, Ananias, longtime fan. I'm one of those inferior Lutherans. Love the Eastern Orthodox, though. What are your thoughts on Cleve's lack of muscular development? It's over, dude. It's over. He's a funny guy. He always comes in and calls me bald or something. he's a cool guy though. He's a regular.
Talking to. I was talking with one of the priests a couple days ago. There was priests around. I was talking to somebody else who converted to Orthodoxy, and they were asking me where I'd convert. I'm like, I converted from Lutheranism, and they were like, well, that's not that bad. I'm like, oh, I tend to maybe I'm biased and partial, but like out of the Protestants,
yeah,
I think the LCMS are the best.
There you go. Oh, did you hear that? All right, Geralt. LCMS #1 prots. I kind of agree, to be honest. I kind of agree, to be honest. Even if you were to compare like the Anglicans and so on and so forth, the LCMS, I mean, at least they've stayed somewhat like conservative, right?
Yeah.
Thor is dead 86 asks, Father, bless, in a determinist worldview, would God be bound by his will? In turn, would that mean that there is another equal or greater eternal being?
All right, I'm going to try to figure this out. I don't know what type of determinist worldview we're really kind of talking about. Let's suppose it's Calvinism. Would God be bound by his will? Part of what will means is it isn't bound, like a free will. So it doesn't really kind of make sense. Furthermore, if you had a Calvinist God, he's the one determining, he's not determined. However, what is really important is if you don't have your theology correct, if there's sort of, well, I've argued this with absolute divine simplicity. Every predicate of God is identical with his essence. And there's no potentia. Okay, that would mean will is as well. But because essence exists of necessity, right? Everything's necessarily actualized. In that, if you don't suss that out correctly and have the divine energies, as well as the concept of the distinction between nature and person, guess what you get? God's will is determined and conditioned by his essence. So there is a way that you could do some bad theology and end up that bad. I don't know if that answers, but
yeah, maybe specifically if you were addressing it from a Calvinist framework, would God be bound by his will? I don't know if that's the best way to articulate it, though, right? That seems like an odd articulation of the question. But
yeah, if God determines things in a Calvinist, but he's not determined unless you commit to absolute divine simplicity, in which the essence determines his will. That's how I'd answer it.
Okay. Is it okay to be Orthodox and not take church teachings such as amillennialism, Christ fulfilling Jewish holidays, etc.? I got a friend who wants this.
No. Real easy.
There you go.
So let me just say something real quick about, I hear a lot of objections sometimes. Well, that's not dogmatic because it wasn't declared in a council or something like that. But do you know that not all things dogmatic have to be declared in a council? Let's take, for example, the only two bishops that excommunicated themselves in the Great Schism is Rome and the Patriarch of Constantinople. Okay. There was the rest of the patriarchal sees did not have a synod to agree that Rome, and to make a formal pronouncement that Rome's now outside of the church. Now, I've always argued at that point, prior to that, you have something that Rome was still part of Orthodoxy. Just because the two excommunicated themselves, the others were still in communion until when? Until the other three patriarchal sees accepted Constantinople's decision. Notice there's no formal declaration on that, but that's dogmatic, right? So I would say the same thing with, despite the fact that there were there were different views on, right? I do know there were no pre-tribs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure you don't find that in the Fathers. But I would actually say it is dogmatized. You know why? Because in the Nicene Constantinopolitan Creed, it adds in Constantinople the addition, whose kingdom shall have no end.
Mm-hmm. To
actually solve this problem, because there were fathers that were on different positions. So I don't know how you would deal with, I don't know how you'd be Orthodox and be like, yeah, but that part of the creed I don't like. I'm not believing in that part.
Yeah, there's a guy that jumps into the live streams pretty often that asks that same question. And even his own priest said, no, you have to accept this teaching. Yeah. So I think with that guy, yeah, you could probably attend the church, right? Go and attend and be a part of the divine liturgy and allow God to work on your heart. But eventually that's something that he'll have to overcome. You know what I mean?
I know who that person is. He's actually asking about full preterism.
Oh, what's that guy's username? Do you remember?
I don't know. I don't know if it's the same person, but
I think I saw him in your live stream before too.
Oh, he comes into yours too.
Spams the chat, yeah.
Yeah, and he was like,
I don't know if that's this guy.
I'm really convinced of the Orthodox arguments, but I can't accept it because I'm committed to this made-up thing that you won't find anywhere. You don't find any full preterism in the early church.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know exactly when the date is, but I'm sure it comes probably around the Reformers. Full preterists.
That's interesting. If it's only one thing that's keeping you from being Orthodox, that's honestly just a pride thing, in my opinion. All right. My wife asked, hey, you changed your username. This guy used to have a crazy username. My wife asked if I think all Baptists go to hell. I said, ultimately, salvation is God's decision. She asked why I need to be Orthodox if Baptists can be saved. How do I answer truthfully and tactfully? I get asked this question a lot. I can give a helpful illustration if that's okay.
Please.
So the way that I framed it, forget who I was talking to. I think I was responding to Redeemed Zoomer, who asked me the same thing or something like that. And I said, well, if you have a bunch of broken ribs, you can get them healed in the hospital. Maybe they might be healed if you're laying on the forest floor, but why would you take that chance?
That's the same argument that I use. Yep.
Yeah, just coming to the hospital for sinners. That's the purpose. Theosis is about, making you like God, Christ-like, right? To participate in the uncreated energies of God. It's the hospital for sinners. It's healing there's something wrong with you that needs to be healed. Why wouldn't you want to come into the hospital? That's like saying okay, well, this person is injured and they might be okay if they just like sat out in the sun for like a month. Yeah, they might, maybe, but
Yeah.
do you really want to take that chance?
Do you want to take that
Especially when it
chance?
comes to your salvation?
Yeah.
But,
I use the same thing too. I mean, I push a little bit harder and say, imagine if it's terminal illness. Is it possible to be healed outside of the hospital and specialists? Like, yeah, but why would you ever prescribe that? Be like, you know what you should do? And it's also similar to, can somebody come to Jesus through psychedelics?
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, but I would never prescribe it.
right.
Like, that's really dangerous. God can, overcome those things that are incorrect and still save you, despite, and I always say that if Protestants are saved, they're not saved in virtue of their Protestant faith, but in spite of it. Because God's a good God who loves mankind, but it certainly would be rare. Narrow is the way, right? I mean, I can't remember if it was Father Seraphim Rose that said this. If salvation is hard for us and we're in the ark of salvation, how much harder is it being outside of it?
Mhm.
So it's like you're outside of the ark. It's dangerous waters. Like, I had no idea, and I would never recommend actually going out there, because if even few are going to be saved in Orthodoxy, it's like it's going to be even worse outside of there. And
Yeah.
and Protestantism has this weird kind of thing. Not all, but they have this thing like the exception of the rule becomes the rule.
Yep.
It's like, well, the thief wasn't baptized, and so we don't need to be baptized too. By the way, there is a tradition that, in fact, the good thief on the cross actually had met Christ before and was actually baptized. And he was just publicly declaring his faith in God, so that he was actually already saved through works prior to him even being on, and not works as merits, but works of act of virtue to acquire the virtues and likeness of God.
Mhm. I'm gonna skip and answer this one question, if that's okay. I'd like to just answer it very briefly and then move on, so we don't spend too much time on the true Orthodox stuff, because I get asked this a lot, and this was actually asked in a previous live stream too, and I didn't get to the question because we ran out of time. But I get asked this almost every single stream. Do you think the GOCK is graceless when they were in communion with ROCOR up until the union with the MP? I'll say this, and I want to keep it very brief, if that's okay. If you are in schism from the church, you are outside of the hospital, right? I can pray that God will send you first aid kits, but you're outside of the hospital. So if you would like to receive God's healing, come into the hospital. That would be my answer to that.
And by the way, at the time they were in communion with ROCOR, and ROCOR was not in communion with the MP, they were recognized by Bulgaria and Alexandria, so they weren't schismed yet. Those were minor schisms when you cut off, because there's conciliarity and synodality. So I could argue that, well, I could say at that point they had grace because they hadn't severed themselves off from communion. ROCOR was not a schismatic, like they were still recognized by patriarchal sees. Geez,
All right,
more schismatic stuff. It's never going to end.
Yeah, well, it's like the same thing when you get the EP MP administrative schism questions, right? They're like, "Oh, does that mean like they're both graceless because it's an administrative schism?" It's like, dude, no, there's always been little administrative breaks between certain sees, right? Like that's always happened all throughout history. To say that it's when you separate yourself from the entire body, right? Not if there's like an administrative break between two sees or something. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Come on, guys.
Administrative schism is different than an actual schism.
Well, yeah. Breaking yourself off from the entire communion.
This is a good
Father
one.
Father Seraphim Rose, even before the anathema on one. Father Seraphim Rose stated the OC Old Calendar schismatics were wrong, and the time for schism was when and if they actually reunite and make it a dogma. That said, doesn't the anathema on ecumenism still stand, even though unenforced, because ecumenist works through the line, I am not a TO? No, I already explained this. So at the reunion between Rocor and the MP, they actually signed documents annulling all prior canonical declarations that would include the anathemas. So those are actually annulled canonically. So no, that does not, they are not still enforced. And actually, if you were to read the rudder, St. Nicodemus of the Holy Mountain says that the canons must remain in force unless a council of equal divine inspiration decrees otherwise and annuls them. So canonically, that is actually 100% the correct way to go about it, and that is how it was handled. Let's see. Read the Gospels, pray the Psalms every day. Hey, thank you. Hi, Father. Thoughts on praying the Masoretic Psalter?
No, don't do that.
There you go.
Masoretic is its binnacle developed, 4 or 5 centuries, over 4 or 5 centuries, in the spirit of something that's very anti-Christian. So, like, I would not read I don't know. That's an interesting question. I mean, some of the stuff matches exactly on to the Septuagint as well. So, I mean, I guess I just don't know why you would do that. You know what I mean? Well, you'd have to go through every single one and be like, all right, does that match on? Is there something weird there? Like, just don't bother with it. You know what I mean? I mean, there's stuff that matches exactly the Septuagint, stuff like that, but there's other stuff that does it. There's stuff that's missing, and so I wouldn't do it, just to be safe.
Protestant,
you're not going to go to hell if you.
Yeah, you're getting zapped as soon as you start praying it. He says, Protestant inquire, if the normative way to receive the Holy Spirit is through the church, should a Prot expect to experience something different when being accepted into an apostolic church? The whole apostolic churches thing is not real. There's one actual church that Christ established. It's not like they're all equally valid. But go ahead, FDA, however you want to handle that.
When you come into the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, should you experience something expected? Yeah. Just look at the icons. Listen to the sounds and then see what happens to people when they actually work the steps of the program, and not just going through the motions and doing merits and stuff, but attempting to be healed. It's radically different. It's very rare. Most of my Protestant friends that I grew up with, they're still at the same state. And the reason why is they just don't have the kind of, they're doing their best with what they got. I got into that. But they don't have the tools and the hardware to run the program of healing. And that's why it's so rare to see somebody that's really, I don't want to say saintly, because we only reserve that, but somebody who's remarkably like transformed and stuff like that. And in fact, usually, somebody might go through a radical transformation of like off drugs. I was just talking to somebody about this too. But then they fall back into it. Right. There's no real, and the reason why is it's fairly superficial. It doesn't have the tools. The reason why we have always kept what we've always kept is it works. It was given to us because the good God who loves mankind knows that these things, if you want to be healed, and isn't that exactly what Christ asked? I always thought that was an amazing question. Do you want to be healed? Mm-hmm. No, I just want to, just give me the rules and the things, the prayers that I got to say. I just want to do the merits. No, it's about healing. Right. So it's not a juridical system. If you want to be healed, yeah, you're going to experience something totally different. Absolutely. Can
Great
I
question.
read a
Yeah, go ahead.
super chat real quick?
Absolutely.
Because I don't want to leave these. Octavian 999, probably a stupid question. Do we assume the apostles were baptized? Yes. I mean, my saint who was apostle, Saint Ananias, did what? He baptized Saint Paul. Prior to that, you have Saint John the Baptist, right? Baptizing, and you have the baptism of Saint, and then you have Christ comes. So I would assume, just because it's not recorded, the exact baptisms, if it tells you got to go be baptized, like the apostles aren't going to be, well, that doesn't apply to me. I'm the baptizer. I'm not the one to be baptized. So I'm assuming yes. Have you heard that question before?
Repeat it to me. Oh, sorry. I was reading the chat.
Do we assume that the apostles were baptized? I say yes.
It depends on what church father you ask. Tertullian speculated that they might not have been, and he said even if they weren't, I think he was saying it as like a hypothetical, but he was saying like even if they weren't, something about when it was instituted, it wouldn't have mattered anyway, or something along those lines. But I think that's an interesting question. I think he's an outlier. Every other church father I've read on the subject said that they were baptized, and Tertullian seems to have very.
Well, I don't call him a church father. You know that, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. So that would be a misnomer there.
So only a church father. He was a teacher. He was a
Right.
teacher. We could say that, but he
that would be the
apostolized,
better
and
way.
only church fathers can be saints.
Yeah.
Only saints, could be church fathers. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're correct. That's absolutely right. So good distinction to make there. He had some weird views on a lot of different things in baptism, but that might be where this is stemming from, is maybe you've read Tertullian's works on it. But he also said that after you're baptized, you commit one mortal sin, you're hellbound. And he also later on in life became a Montanist heretic that basically had women prophetesses that would do like blood rituals, and they were like charismatic Pentecostals that would shake and have seizures and were basically demon possessed. So I don't know if I would trust the one guy that said, in opposition of the rest of church history, that maybe they weren't baptized when the remainder of them said that they were. So I don't know. That's like knee-jerk thoughts on the matter. I remember reading Tertullian on baptism, that specific text, and it just sounding like kind of schizophrenic back and forth, like on one side, all of his writings are kind of like that though. Like he'll write one thing at one point and then write the exact opposite later on. I remember reading a treatise by him that said something along the lines of, women can't be ordained. These are all the reasons why, ABC 1, 2, 3. And then he goes and he joins a heretic sect that has ordained women. So, I don't know. He doesn't make much sense to me, to be honest, but that's a good question. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that before we went to another one?
Well, even if somebody was a saint, they get stuff wrong sometimes. Saints can't bind. They can't define doctrine. And I've told Roman Catholics at the same position. They were like, your patriarch said this stupid thing. I'm like, not my patriarch, first of all. Number two, no bishop can define doctrine. Only a synod can. So you got to stop thinking in a papal mode. Be like, yeah, like bishops say wrong stuff sometimes. Even saints do. They don't define doctrine. There's absolutely no understanding of conciliarity and synodality. It's just like, well, I don't want to accept it, so you have to accept my position, and I'm going to critique your position through my position. Okay. I don't even want to answer.
Here's a question here. For FDA, did you watch the debate between Dr. Sijuwade and the opera singer? Did you have any thoughts? Who's the opera singer?
Or I'm not even going to mention the names. I'm going to give you guys a general principle. Okay? Don't get your theology from opera singers. Don't get your theology from goobers on X who are probably 16, 17 years old that you don't even know are Orthodox, who have no blessing to teach. Again, does that mean that teenagers, and the person obviously in this is not a teenager, but I'm just getting to a general thing that people seem to have a problem that with understanding that there's a prescribed way of going about stuff and learning theology in Orthodoxy. That doesn't mean that a teenager can't get something right or have a good argument or something like that. But odds are they probably are not. And the thing is, it's like this. If you need heart surgery, it's possible that the heart surgeon could err. Now, if you had a 16-year-old like, well, I studied heart surgery, and he said, really, do you have a medical degree? No. But I've read all about it online. I think I can do it. Like, it goes back to that point of danger, right? Like, why would you do something like that? And so for some reason, look, this kind of consensus, isn't it odd that Dr. Sijiwade, Dr. Bo Branson, Dr. David Bradshaw, the bishops, the priest, and just because you could find one priest as an outlier doesn't mean, but it's consensus. Isn't it odd they all say the same thing? And these other people have some take that's against that? That's all I'll say about. Just go the prescribed way, go with the consensus, go with those who have an ecclesial blessing to teach, the Orthodox scholars, stuff like that. And quit it.
Yeah. Don't get your theology from Twitter anons. There you go. My wife and her family are Hebrew roots followers converted by 119 Ministries and Home Church. They claim to hold beliefs predating Orthodoxy. Yeah, sure. I'm sorry to hear that, dude. That sucks.
Yeah, that is sad.
Was there a question there? If you have a follow-up question, let me know in the chat, and I will. I'll pull that up there. I didn't see a follow-up there. But
one thing I noticed about Hebrew roots too. First of all, they're ahistorical. They have no understanding of church history whatsoever. Number two, they're Judaizers. They're rule lovers, right? They have no concept of how law actually works, liturgy, any of these things. So it's really kind of a sad place to be.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, there's all sorts of crazy cults out there, to be honest. Very, very unfortunate. I didn't change my username. I think YouTube flagged it. Yeah.
No,
it was
a
crazy username.
I'll put in, sometimes it says patristic faith, sometimes it says e-sorm. And I'm like, I have no idea why it does that.
Yeah. Here, I'll answer this in one word. Mark 1, Christ says, believe the gospel for his passion. 1 Corinthians 15, Paul says the gospel is Christ's passion and resurrection. What is the gospel? Theosis. There you go. You look for a simple answer.
One word answer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what they want. That's what the evangelicals want, because they're like, what is the gospel, dude? And if you don't answer it in like as like concise as possible, they're like, well, look, they're just overcomplicating things. They don't have the God. It's theosis, dude. So
I'd also say it's orthodoxy, right? Doxa. That's the gospel, and the good news is the whole of the faith delivered to man, once for all to the saints. It's not the synoptic gospels. It's actually the whole. It's the whole of the teaching of, and it's the correct, which is why we use that term, the phrase orthodox. So that's the other thing. And what is orthodox? Theosis. That's.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was with the whole sola fide thing. I mean, if you're a once saved, always saved guy, that's that's super spiritually dangerous. But I had a good conversation with DPH. I don't remember if it was on his channel or mine, but we're talking about the subject. And it's like if you adopt a sola fide framework, it's okay. Well, you know what? if works are just an outflowing of your justification, works are like evidence of saving faith, then your entire life becomes just a like you're pocket watching yourself to make sure you're fruit checking yourself to make sure you're good, which I think is a reason why a lot of the Protestants out there suffer from things like ecclesial anxiety. If you notice the big name Protestant apologists, they're all talking about this right now, ecclesial anxiety, so on and so forth. This stems from this kind of like puritanical mindset that comes from having a system that is basically set up to pocket watch yourself the entire time, as opposed to the actual gospel, which is theosis, which is healing, which is making yourself Christ, or which is God making you like Christ, which is the actual gospel. So it's more medicinal rather than simply some kind of like Talmudic like bean counting.
By the way, they always miss the part in James, because I believe that as a Protestant, I believe that too, that the causal error was faith produces good works. So it's an effect of, which is true. But James also says, and his works perfected, right? That means it's a cause of his faith. So there's a symbiosis, right? Between it breaks the kind of dialectic, like which one goes which way. It's like it's both. It's a both and, right? I have never heard a Protestant respond to, but like, you do know that it says right there in the Bible that the works actually cause the faith, correct faith. It's not just saving faith produces works, but your actual working produces the faith that saves.
Yeah. You know what's so funny? I was thinking about that just before I converted. I was teaching or maybe it was like a month or two. That's funny that you bring that up, because I was teaching an apologetics class, and I'm thinking to myself as I'm teaching it at my when I was a Protestant, I'm like, you know what? It's so weird. It's like, okay, the works feed into your faith. Your faith, except it's like this big circle. I'm like, wait a minute. There's something messed up with my paradigm. So I was going off.
The other thing too is
model.
It's just Western. It's very Western to have these dialectics of opposition, and they're very pronounced in Protestantism. God set against man, nature versus grace, the two kingdoms doctrine, right? I started listing all the dialectics, heaven and earth, right? They're separated. You even see this in the architecture with, you remember this? Here's the church and here's the steeple. Huh? Open up the doors and there's all the people. The steeple is God's out there. Notice the dome, right? Where it's literally Christ. Heaven is coming into the earth and transforming it. Paradise lost is now paradise restored. The kingdom of heaven is here, present now, at hand. And you could go through probably 30 different things of dialectics of opposition in Protestantism. But that's why and the other thing too, just like anybody, I think 90% of people's problems might just be words. There's more problems have been caused with words. I'm like, oh, you got your words all messed up. Oh, word has to mean the same thing in every case, or semantical sorcery is the other one I use. It's like there's a lot of problems that just come down to you got your words messed up.
Yeah, it does certainly seem like that. Absolutely. This person says, I am a catechumen in a GOC USA parish under Metropolitan Demetrius. I guess you're probably saying Demetrius of America. Would it be in my best interest to look for a different church?
No. You should stay Greek. By the way, every single stream we have the same question.
I think he's saying genuine Orthodox, like the schismatics.
Oh, yeah, not the Greek. Yeah, definitely get out.
Yeah, if you're in the genuine Orthodox Church, rejoin, become a part of the church Christ established.
I thought it said Goa, but it's GOC. Sorry, I'm blind. This is what happens when I don't wear my glasses here. Okay, got it. Yeah, get it out. Don't. Why would you be in a schismatic church?
Yeah. Easy answer. Thank you for the super chat though. FDA, does tag relate and lead into hesychasm and noetic prayer, which is how we acquire true knowledge of God, which is experiential and participatory?
Amen. Well put. That's what my paper is going to be on. My paper is entitled From Athens to Apophaticism, Where to Find Knowledge. And, people are always asking me, well, how does orthodoxy and tag overcome the Munchausen's trilemma or the Chisholm's problem of criterion? I'm like, it doesn't, in terms of West, there is no proposition or system that overcomes that. That's the whole point. How do you overcome it? By a radically different category, by an experience of God. And the way that's done, where does God speak and reveal? And the deepest sense? In silence. So apophaticism is removing all the logosmoi. Blaise Pascal, a Western philosopher, probably one of the closest to Orthodox in mindset, said if it wasn't for all these distractions, there'd be nothing more evident and clear than God's existence. And so what we do, we don't think that knowledge primary is a proposition, that it's something abstract, it's a system. Truth is not a proposition. It's a person. It's Jesus Christ. And we can't see and know and have, as the fathers talk, true gnosis, because we have all these things in our mind and noises and thoughts and propositions that are trying to mediate. So what do? In hesychasm, the noetic, we clear it out. And there you have an immediate experience with God that's not mediated by anything. And you can't then go ask, and I wrote this in the paper too, I'll give you guys a spoiler alert. The Eastern and Western mindset, are almost incommensurate. So when I tell you the failures of the Western understanding of knowledge, and then you ask me the same problem, well, how does it overcome? Give me a Western answer of how it overcomes the Munchausen's triad, and it's like, I'm telling you can't. So either you don't know anything and you're in a skepticism, or there's a different mode. As St. Justin Popovich says in St. Isaac the Syrian, man is on one side of the gulf and truth is on the other. And he cannot reach it. He can't actually obtain the one thing that he wants. And so what happens is God from the other side doesn't declare the truth. He is the truth. And the truth shall make you free from death, from ignorance. And that's really but what's the propositional, what are the logical operators on that? And I'm starting to tell people, you're asking the wrong question. You're in the total wrong category. And you'll never find the answer there. Yeah, but what's the answer? Well, aren't you? It's just like, that's why it's really not a issue about an argument. It's like, you've got yourself to think like a retard and you're all sick and messed up. That's really what the problem is, because you can't even understand what's being said. You have to live a life. You have to be transformed. What does Scripture say? By the renewing of our mind. What does that suggest? I'm retarded. My mind's retarded. I'm retarded. And I got to fix it and renew it. And that's all the transcendental argument is really the gospel. Come and be healed. Renew your mind so that you can see clearly.
All right, perfect. Let's see. Where did I leave off? I was messing around in the chat. We had some trolls. Let's see. The chats are always fun. Like I like I kind of like how chaotic they get sometimes. All right, question. Does the Western doctrine of absolute divine simplicity lead to the conclusion of adopting an iconoclastic approach to images and icons? Interesting question.
What does it say?
It says, does the Western doctrine of ADS lead to the conclusion of basically being an iconoclast? I don't know. Do you see how that follows? I don't necessarily see how that follows.
There is a connection I talked about last night we were talking about being made in the image of God, the icon, right? And that Christ is the exact iconos, image of the Father. Christ says, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And then we talked about the Christophanies, right? Because of absolute divine simplicity, the Christophanies are holograms in the Roman Catholic position. They're not actually God. In Orthodoxy, it's actually God. Christ ate with Abraham. He wrestled with Jacob. He was actually it wasn't a hologram. And there's something that, I mean, it's quite complicated. But through these energetic manifestations, right? Because the energies are really God. This is what allows God, whose essence transcends all space and time, for God to actually be present there. In the same way that icons, that the image of the model is actually present there without actually being the paint and stuff like that. And I would say in a real sense, I wouldn't say, especially with the divine energies and stuff. So I think there's a connection. I don't know if it led to that, but there's a separation between Bishop Jovan says the image that's on, whether it's in the mirror or on the icon, and the model are in a firm bond. The West separates that. And in part, that does have to do with the essence and the rejection of the energies doctrine. So there is something there.
There is one non-super chat question I want to pull up just because I think it's important to address. And then we'll get back to the super chat questions because we have quite a few of them. Coin asks, and also, by the way, this is a stream for the inquirers first off. So if you are on the fence about becoming Orthodox and you're getting close, let me know that in the chat so I can make sure I don't miss your question or something, because that's the ultimate goal here, is to help you guys out. So if you're in the audience and you are on the fence about becoming Orthodox, let me know, and we can address your pertinent question there. How can I help myself recover from a decade in a cult? I'm a young woman in her 20s, and my growing years were full of scary cult beliefs I'm having a hard time with. God bless.
Yeah. Well, you're in the best place to recover. I'd say we're all in cults before we came into Orthodoxy, at different degrees. Everybody needs different degrees of healing, but we come with baggage. God forgive me. I came into Orthodoxy thinking well, yeah, of course, all the fathers and the saints were anarcho-capitalist, theistic evolutionists. I just got to convince everybody in the church that it's true. Right? I was brainwashed. I was in a type of cult, and it took some time for me just doing the prescribed things in the Orthodox Church. It's important that these issues be brought up with your priest, right? So they know where to kind of work on the kind of the physician of the soul's kind of healing and stuff like that. But if you do the prescriptions, you do the things that we normally do as Orthodoxy, it works. It starts to heal you from the stuff that we've brought in from outside. I want to read, if you don't mind, a super chat. Jordan, 1999, sorry for the question, was hearing mixed answers about the position debated. I hold monarchical position presented, but I'm told the strict position is informed by modern scholarship. Any works on the topic you recommend? It isn't modern scholarship. the good scholars that I brought up, Dr. C.J. Wade, Dr. Bo Branson, and Dr. David Bradshaw, some of the best, are articulating what St. Gregory of Palamas, St. Basil, right, are basically arguing. So again, stop listening to people. So it isn't, and you can see that's the way. Well, those are modern scholars. How many times have I heard that? Well, that's a modernist. You're a modernist, right? And it's like, no, that you can't just throw that word out there. This is the Orthodox position. That's Palamas, right? God first and foremost refers to the Father. I believe in one God, the Father, not the Trinity. That doesn't mean to deny the divinity of any of the persons. But the problem is they're committed to this. They're bringing in stuff actually from Calvin and these different stuff about autotheos of the other persons of the Trinity. The only person of the Trinity that's autotheos is the Father. The divinity, the fullness of divinity is given eternally from the Father to the Son and to the Holy Spirit. But they actually depend upon the Father. That's why they were saying you can't strictly say that the Trinity, the Trinity is God. You say, no, God the Father and God. And this actually becomes important. The reason why Dr. C.J. Wade took this up recently, I don't even think he should have given this clown the attention, but he didn't know, is that if you go read the article and the interview that I did with Dr. C.J. Wade on do Muslims and Christians worship the same God, the monarchical position that he's arguing for is exactly what allows us to combat the Islamic critiques against tritheism. So that's why it's important. But just quit listening to clowns and opera singers. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. I noticed that on X.
And 16-year-olds on the internet. I kid you not, actually found people. Yeah. Did you find out one of the guys these people were getting their theology from? Same group, by the way, is a furry. He's 16 years old, a furry. And you thought that was a good idea. Like, well, I'm going to go to some random kid who's a furry to get my theology. Like, I can't help you at that point. Like, that's pretty far out there. So just stop doing it. You know, it's just a general problem, I think, of lack of discernment. Like, if you're going, what if you're getting your theology from, at this point, you might as well just be getting if you're getting your theology from a 16-year-old furry, you might as well be just contacting somebody on the Ouija board and getting your theology at that point. I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's probably just as bad, and it'll probably end up in the same place.
Yep. Ignore all of the Latinizers on X. They're all a part of the same group. It's like, it's a hot mess. There was a good, who's that? There's the one dude with the furry profile picture that guy Apophatic was defending or whatever. That guy posted like a whole list of like Latinizers to come and back him up in the chat. I was like, I'm like, somebody commented, it was like that's a good block list. Like, like, you know, like that's a pretty good block list there.
Oh, I'm glad that but it was all like anime like characters that they put their names and like they had the sensei in the middle, and I'm just like,
dude, what a mess.
I can't think of a better refutation, you guys, than that tweet right there. Like, that's great. Just keep it up. Like,
well,
I just don't understand people that fall for it.
Yeah, well, that guy Apophatic, in his bio, it says he works for that podcast, the Ortho Chat. Like, they invited me on their show a couple of times. I said no, or I just didn't reply to them. They blocked me after I didn't reply to them also, which was kind of weird. But I'm like, why do you have furries working for your show? Or at least like furry sympathizers? I don't know. That's very strange to me. Like, that gives me red flags. It's like, dude, maybe not the best show to be supporting. I don't know. That's just me though. All right, let's move on, because I could rant about that all day.
I know,
and
me
then,
too.
People will start going nuts in the comments there, asking about the Masoretic Psalms, because most English Bibles base their Psalms. Just get an Orthodox Psalter, man.
Yeah.
Just get an
Don't
Orthodox Psalter.
risk it. Don't you have to do all the extra work where it's like, I have to go through now and figure out which one was changed? Like, I just don't understand it. Like, again, you're not going to be zapped by God. You're not sinning if you do it, but like, why would you want it when we have an Orthodox Psalter?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. David asks, how involved is a priest in the catechumen process? What about deacons? Both are involved in mine. So pretty involved.
Yeah, I mean, every priest is different. I'm kind of in a unique position because there's no actual priest in Helena. So I'm commissioned to act as the priest. Now, that doesn't mean I can consecrate and, forgive sins and stuff. But I basically, when Father Russell's not here, he was like, you're going to act as me in Helena. And part of that is catechizing. But oftentimes, even if that isn't the situation, oftentimes the priest will have, if the deacon's learned enough and qualified, there's a very historical role of the diaconate of actually doing the catechesis. So that's one of the roles the deacon historically would have taken. So good question.
All right, let's keep going. We got a lot of questions here, so you might want to blast through some of these here. Sorry to bring it up, but I've been debating a true Orthodox. We're going to get them all night. At the Acts state, only prior canonical decisions prevent communion, which would only apply if the MP didn't rebounce. He says rebounce. It was rebouncing over there, ecumenism, which it did. Doesn't that refute the TO, though? Dude, the fact that there is a clause in the reunification documents that say that the prior condemnations are no longer in effect settles the entire thing. So the 1983 ROCOR anathemas aren't even in the equation anymore. They'll pull up this video that's like a metropolitan stating like, wouldn't those affect ROCOR? Wouldn't those anathemas affect ROCOR? And he's like, yeah. But they cut off the part at the end that says, but when we reconciled with them, within the documents there, we state that these are no longer in application. That's how things are done canonically, right? If you are going to update a canonical decision, it has to be done by a subsequent equally inspired council. That's in the rudder itself. So if we want to make sure that we're sticking to the canons, that's the correct way to do it. They did it the right way. So, I mean, the counter argument is this. They'll say, well, I could point to stained glass hammer and sickle thing somewhere in Russia. Like if one church has like a stained glass thing.
Or clowns do.
Right. Or they could say like this one statement by this metropolitan or this one statement by this patriarch basically says, no, they're all evil. We're going to take this one statement or whatever. We're going to run with it. That's not the way it works. You have to be condemned, or at least you have to be tried. You have to be given your day in court, right? If that hasn't happened yet, the canons are not self-actualizing magic spells that just anybody that's a layman can then just say, look, you fell into this canonical trap. You are now, you've activated my trap card, and now you're automatically, take 15 damage or whatever. It's
a good way to put it.
That's not the way it works. So, that was something that I had like messed myself up with, doing all the canon law stuff in the past. It was something I had to really do a lot of research and have in-depth conversations with people in the background. That was my hurdle, was doing that. And that wasn't something I could just ask like your normal, like everyday priest. I had to reach out to some people that were really good in canon law to walk me through some of my objections. But that's a good question.
Well, I find the best way to solve that is find a 16-year-old furry and have them walk you through canon law.
That's true. I've heard this actually. I've heard you have to find the Twitter anon.
For those with a bit of the tism out there, For those with a bit of the tism out there, that was called sarcasm. It was a joke.
All right, Kyler with the big super chat. Hey, thank you so much. I'm a convert from a Protestant background. I used to be obsessed with assurance, but isn't it true there could be no real assurance or certitude in anything, even salvation itself, apart from a direct and personal encounter with God himself? If you don't mind, I could take a crack at this and I'll let you go right after. I think a lot of people from a Protestant background, they're stuck in this kind of dialectic where it's like, well, if I don't have assurance right now, then that means I'm going to spiral or something. That's not necessarily the case, because anybody would affirm that you would have to remain in the faith until you die. So even from the Protestant perspective, you remain in the faith until you die. And if you don't, like, let's say in 2 or 3 weeks, you become a Buddhist or something, obviously you're not saved, right? So stay in the faith and struggle, right? That's kind of the whole point. So it's not this like black and white dialectic like the Protestants would try to have. They try to paint it like it's some huge deviation. It's stay in the faith, struggle until you die. Don't be an apostate, right? But go ahead, FDA.
The assurance is the plan, not the man. Huh. Anyways, it would do the reverse. If you were told, oh, you're in, we made a, and it's just so statutory and juridical. Oh, did you agree to this? Did you let Jesus in? Do you agree that you let Jesus into your heart? Then that's a contract that's going to hold, right? Regardless of what you do. So it's a complete, I would say, again, we're going to words. The words mean something totally different. Faith, works, grace, assurance, salvation, they're totally different words in Orthodoxy. Salvation is an ontological change, is theosis, it's acquiring the virtues, right? Which then implies something else. Because if virtues cannot actually, there is no imputational righteousness with virtues. God cannot zap virtues into you. You cannot be born with virtues. Guess what? Everybody knows, even secular philosophers, virtues have to be struggled and acquired, struggled towards. You actually have to work at gaining virtues. And the thing is, if you have free will, you have to work at them. If that's what the assurance is acquiring the virtues, there's no assurance that you're going to do that, because you're a real person that could turn and be like, I don't want to work anymore. It becoming like Christ. So it's a total different paradigm. And it's really difficult for me to answer those questions when, again, the words in the entire question's wrong. You've got to relearn, that's why I really think it's incommensurate. And you're assuming that, oh, well, you're a Christian too, so you can answer, you read the Bible. It's like, no, it's totally different. As far as the East is from the West, that's how different these words and concepts and answers are.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's spiritually dangerous to hold to some kind of false assurance, right? You're kind of just like deluding yourself into not actually struggling in the faith. I was talking to a buddy of mine that was inquiring at the same time that I had begun inquiring, and he was telling me that as a Protestant, he felt like super dejected because there was like something broken he couldn't quite put his finger on. And he was like, they tell me like I'm good, I just remain in the faith, I'm good. But there wasn't really like the fear of God. There wasn't like an actual, it's built into the framework there. If your framework is basically fruit checking, that's more neurotic behavior rather than a medicinal healing aspect, which is essential to the actual gospel. So if your entire life isn't revolving around cooperation with grace, you're basically giving yourself false assurance and you're allowing yourself to be deceived. I think especially once saved, always saved is super dangerous, but sola fide in general, if you take it to its logical conclusion, is dangerous. Now, granted, when I was a Protestant, I articulated sola fide a little different than I guess most Protestants did, and I realized ultimately the way that I articulated it wasn't actually sola fide. So people will catch me like they're like, oh, but look at the sermon he did, and I'm like, well, actually, what I'm talking about is cooperation with grace. Like, okay, well, then it's not necessarily sola fide that I'm articulating.
Yeah, I was like that too. I started realizing my Lutheran positions actually weren't Lutheran and they're more Orthodox. But I would say there's something similar to apostasis, i.e. universalism. And I forget what elder or saint said. Even if it were true, you should never believe it, ever, because it would be so destructive to your salvation to actually even entertain that that's a possibility. And it's a similar point there. As we obviously know it's not true, but you wouldn't, psychologically speaking, you wouldn't work. You wouldn't actually do it. It would be so damaging to. So that's why you have to probably then add in, well, it's not me that's working. See, it's God working through me, and I'm a Pinocchio automaton, and that's what I got to add some of that stuff in there.
Just a heads up, I have to wrap up in like 30 minutes. My wife is waiting.
Okay, let me read one super chat that came in too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm gonna grab all these.
Can I read one real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jordan says $9.99. Thank you for your answers. What's that? So, Jordan says for $9.99. Thank you for your answers. Your talks and articles have helped me greatly. I rewatched that interview. Yes, he's speaking to the Dr. Say. Yeah, great guy. I can't say enough good stuff about him. So he's a good guy to have on our side.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's see. I'm going to grab this one here. Truth in Him question: would John 10, parable of I am the door, and those that jump over the wall are thieves and robbers, support apostolic succession, making Protestant and everyone else thieves and robbers since they are self-appointed? Yes. Yes, I think so. What do you think?
Yeah. Also, I think that it also is a reference to the Jews that think that they're saved in virtue of being born Jewish. That's why you got to match the parables with the parables too. So notice when Christ in the parable of the wedding feast, right? He's calling what? His family to come in, and they won't tend. So he says, go out into the streets, or i.e. the Gentiles, correct? And tell them that the banquet awaits them. And then there's somebody that comes in and he betrays himself. He's not wearing his wedding garment. Right? The wedding garment is your baptismal robes. And so there's something that is the door, right? He is trying to jump the wall. He's a thief, right? So, well, I'm this. I should just be saved the way I want. And really, that's the original temptation of Satan, right? Satan says something true in the garden to Adam and Eve. If you eat this, you'll become like God. The true part is the intention to become like God. The false part is what? Do you want to do it God's way or my way, the simple way, and just, eat the fruit? Why work at it? Why actually going through the door when you can jump the wall? So I think those are all kind of connected. And that's it. People outside of the faith want all the benefits without. I mean, I hear this all the time. Somebody says, let's say it's a very Protestant mindset. Why do I have to believe in all these things? Let's say, why do I have to believe that, I can't hold on to predators? I'm like, are you asking me the question if Christ is saying, would you ask this to Christ? Lord, Can I be 80% Orthodox and 20% heretic?
Right.
It's like, it's a hole.
Mhm.
That's the door. Right? You can't just be like, well, I like a little bit of this and a little bit of this, and you're jumping in over the wall. You're a robber. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's see here. Kyler Birch, thank you for the super chat. Regarding sola fide, if saving faith and necessarily produce works, then works are a condition of that faith that saves, meaning faith is never truly alone, negating sola fide from the start. Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I was talking about with that. It's kind of like a circle. And then your works also feed into your faith. So like, if you're going to consider reading your Bible a work or something, right? Does that not strengthen your faith? So is it
And
not
what's
cyclical?
stupid too, faith is a work. That's
Yeah,
the other thing, is like, those set them in contrast. Everything's in a dialectal opposite. There's faith, and then where it's like, faith is a work. Also, sola fide is premised on nominalism. I don't know if you guys know this, but the Reformers and Luther and they're all and Calvin were all nominalists. And the great thing to solve is really easy. Guess what? Nominalism doesn't come about until William of Ockham in the Middle Ages. St. Paul was not a nominalist. That ends the whole sola fide argument. It's like,
any good vids on Mormonism? I'd say Jim Bob's got a bunch. He does a lot of debates.
yeah, yeah, he's got debates. Father Paul, that was in Utah, in Salt Lake. I don't think he's there anymore. What's that?
Yeah, Paul Truenbach.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, he's at the Peter and Paul's Cathedral.
I think he did a video. Yeah,
that would make sense because he's.
I think he did a video on Mormonism too.
Yeah, that would make sense there. My wife was actually just there on a business trip, so she was like, it's crazy how strange people are in Utah. I think it's mostly the Mormons, and that you see the temples all over the place. And she said, but the thing that she said that was the most shocking about Utah for her was it's full of bees. There's just bees everywhere, dude.
Really?
Crazy. Yeah, just bees all over the place. Thanks for the super chat. Ben, admit it was the smell of the LCMS furry pastor that really brought you to Orthodoxy. That's a mess. Have you seen that? Father Deacon Ananias? Dude, so
no.
I did a stream where we were making fun of the Catholic furry dude that was like, this is my icon corner.
Yeah,
and I was like, I did a stream where we're mocking that, but then there was a LCMS pastor I remembered from my days on Discord that he was like, is it sinful? Is it sinful to be a furry? And he does like this whole thing, and he's like, not really, because and he was like, it's okay, it's totally fine to be. And I'm like, oh my, I'm like, somebody needs to write this guy's like, but I don't know what the district president, is that what they would call them?
Or call his mom.
Yeah, call his mom. I'm telling your mommy on you.
Dude, freak.
Well, it's weird because his whole shtick is like he's supposed to be some kind of tough guy, but he's a furry, dude. And I remember this dude from Discord, and he had a YouTube channel. I don't know if he's active anymore. I think it's called Christian Combatives is the guy's name, the channel name. And he did like a bunch of videos on that subject where he did like this whole long spiel about like, well, actually, if you were to look at people dressing up, that's not necessarily bad. So if you're going to, dress up like a dog and bark and crawl around on the floor and lap up, spilt yogurt from the ground, it's not necessarily sinful, ridiculous, dude. It's like, come on, you're being a degenerate. Like, that's it. Like, there's not too much to go off of here. Like, you don't need to think that deep. Is it weird? Is it degenerate? Don't do it. Easy as that. I don't know. I'll start ranting about that. You guys bring that up again. You're gonna set me
fine.
up.
There's no Orthodox priest that would ever say dressing up as a furry is okay. Isn't that amazing?
That's right. Yeah. Here we go. I was received by the church last Saturday by baptism after 2 years of investigation. I was raised in the LDS faith. My wife of 9 years is LDS. Any advice? I'd love for her to join me. She is mildly interested so far. Hey, praise God.
It's interesting. One of the families that's joining our parish came out of LDS. And we're just kind of talking about the mentality and how he converted and stuff like that. That's a difficult question. If, he was saying, the LDS, they have your life so organized. Like you do stuff, 7 days a week. You get the Bible study, you've got, you do this group and that group. You have all these different events where your whole life's kind of structured, and that kind of keeps you in. And there's a good sense of community, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it doesn't allow people to kind of question. And what I heard from another family that's up north at our Kalispell parish, the Nuella family was a huge family that converted from LDS. And he was saying, you'll be ostracized, like your family members and friends, and they'll think it's a moral failing. And he says, so typically people who are actively engaged in tithing members don't question it because it's not rooted in kind of arguments, but this kind of security and structure that's kind of provided through kind of the feelings and subjectiveness. So just, the fact that you're Orthodox and your wife's going to see that, just keep working on yourself. That's going to break her out of that kind of biofeedback loop, the control center.
Mm-hmm. This is a good comment here because this is what I've heard from most of the time. This question gets answered. This is like the what people will say. Most women need to see the community of the church. Spiritual father is tender. The other women who are relatable and kind, then their heart will be open to the theology. I agree with this. This was the case with my wife. I was very lucky, that I get to go to liturgy with my buddy, and then afterwards go get lunch with him, and my wife and his girlfriend got to hang out, and they was like, oh, they're normal people. Like, this is great. So yeah. I think doing something similar. Also, for the dude that converted, he was in LCMS, and his wife is still LDS, sorry, Mormon. If that is the case, maybe see if she's not willing to go every single week. I don't know how far you guys are into it. Maybe you could say like, hey, are you willing to go with me like every other week or like once a month? Some people have said, and then let her meet people. And the goal needs to be like, she needs to get to know people. She needs to like start building community there. Cause it's probably the biggest, like for women, it's not usually like a head knowledge thing. It's like it's a community piece, or it's, because that's hard. Like you're stuck. You have a bunch of friends in this one church or whatever you want to call it. And then, you go to the Orthodox Church that you're going to, and she doesn't know anybody. Like that's hard for women. You gotta have friends they can hang out with, and introduce her to. So that needs to be the goal. If you're just going like Sunday or something, and you're like,
amen. And that's why.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I was gonna say, make sure you go to like coffee hour.
Absolutely. That's why. That's why I'm so big on filling the week through with events. So next Wednesday night, we're doing Orthodox movie night. We've done Orthodox bowling night. I have the classes. We have wine festivals. We have Orthodox. We'll get together and we'll do music bingo and stuff, because it's important for all of us that we're being Orthodox and friends even outside of the liturgy and the services. We do things together, and that's because I don't want this Americanism. Like, oh, well, there's my religious life. That's private. And then I go and do this separate life, right? And my public life. It's like, we're Orthodox. We're friends. We hang out. We go to dinners. We do stuff together. And I think you're right, Ben, that when you invite people to things, so it's not as threatening, and they experience it, be like, oh, these are cool people. I really like them. That's probably one of the better ways to get introduced, and then be like, yeah, I might check out a service and stuff like that. So amen. Absolutely.
Somebody was asking like what activities do your churches do? At mine, we do like men's fellowship, we do Bible study, we do the catechism stuff, we have coffee hour. This Sunday we're going to do like a big hog cookout. We're like cooking a whole hog. So we're just like, I mean, it's a good community. Also, I mean, make sure you're like when you're kind of looking around for the church to take your family to.
That's how you
check
get
the
them in.
community out. Sorry, God. There's like a delay.
I know. I'm sorry. Well, you know what the problem is? I switch over to my YouTube to see the super chats, and then it's some reason when I do that, it slows it down and we get that delay. So
every super chat that you've read on your end has popped up on mine, except for the first one. I don't know why. But all right, let's blast through the last couple ones here, and then I want to get back to those inquirer questions that I tagged. Question by It's DJ. How do you refute the Trinity leads to polytheism because of how the persons participate in actions differently and of the knowledge they each bear? What? Participate in actions differently.
What you just
knowledge
say?
they each bear.
Well, read on Not Three Gods, right? Defend monarchical Trinitarianism, right? Get these words sorted out that the difference between nature and person and stuff like that. The reason why we're so big on hammering those out is because you don't want to be a tritheist. If you don't stick to the Orthodox theology, you're going to end up in something like tritheism and stuff like that. But ultimately, it comes down to that person transcends nature. They're not just an individuated rational essence or divine essence or something like that. There's that the essence exists in the mode of the person. And that's primarily how that preserves that, together with the monarchical Trinitarianism, is what preserves the criticism that it leads to polytheism or tritheism.
I got a troll super chat. I think that maybe came into your. It seems like a troll super chat.
No,
Can I answer it? I have a funny.
We're going live.
So he says, how would you counsel someone who takes employment under a person widely known for promoting racist or demeaning rhetoric? At what point does just doing a job become a form of complicity? I have some good advice for you. It's called be a man, grow some hairs on your chest, and maybe stop crying. That might be a good question to ask your mommy. So maybe text your mommy after the live stream and see what she says about it. I don't know.
And by the way, there's a liberal professor. I wish I could find this guy again. He won't let his students use the R word or any of these words. It's like, no, you actually have to explain what you actually mean, because they're weaponized. These words don't mean anything anymore. It's 2025. Exactly. Grow up or go talk and cry to your mommy.
Yeah.
But, like, these are weaponized words. I've told people, and I actually believe that the use of those words on the left or the right is what actually enabled an environment of violence that killed Charlie Kirk. I'm like, don't use them. Don't call people the H word, the R word, right? Like, this dehumanizes people. It's like they say, they don't kill you because you're a racist. They kill you. They call you a racist so they can kill you. So stop using it. Like I tell
Yeah.
my parishioners, like, don't use those words. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear this talk at all on either side of the political spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. All right, let's see. Last super chat here, then I'll get to the Inquirer questions that I have pulled up. Could someone visiting with me stepping out during the liturgy 3 times and not staying after because they were bored be spiritual attack? Any prayers I could say? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I've seen that. I even had a friend, best friend I grew up with, when we were first coming in, and he could not sit still. He the same thing. He was under demonic attack. Yeah, and you could definitely look up, just type it in, like Orthodox prayers for peace, for against demonic attacks. There's even, even a small blue book like this, prayer for special needs. And you can kind of, like, for example, I can actually prayer in time of need or trouble. Now, this will say, right? You can switch it and just put, like, name your friend, right? You don't have to read it exactly like, you could say, for my friend. So use some of those prayers. Prayers in times of need or trouble, or under attack or something like that. Yeah.
All right. Great
I find it
question. All right.
3 times though.
Yeah, 3 times. That's quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, I've brought people to church in the past, and I'll tell you, like, especially to people who are like just getting into like knowing, like seeking Christ, Satan's going to try to attack them in any way possible. They might like, oh, like I don't like the way his beard looks. Like I don't like the way the priest's beard looks, or I have to stand, like this is horrible, or like, whatever the case may be. That could
I don't
definitely
like the smell of the incense. Ew.
yeah. Ugh. Ugh. Exactly. I could just go to a Roman Catholic church. There's like 2 million of them. Why do I have to drive 45 minutes? I could just go 5 minutes away. They might have, Skittles masses and stuff, but
Yeah,
it's so
because
convenient.
convenience in number is more important than truth. Got it.
Yeah. Dude, there's no pews. I like my pews. Anyway. Question. All right. Inquirer questions. This is an inquirer. I'm coming to terms with icons in veneration, but confession to a man is odd. Please explain, Eastern Orthodox. Confession. I am prot-brained, so explain slowly. Thank you.
You're not confessing to a man. You're confessing to Christ. That's why oftentimes there'll be an icon of Christ and you're looking at Christ. You're speaking to him. But it also calls back on the ancient kind of Hebrew of having a witness. And so the priest is a witness of your confession to Christ. You're not confessing to him. In fact, when you get a blessing, you're not getting a blessing from a priest. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
You're getting the blessing from the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
The priest is announcing the Lord's blessing to you. He says, I, the humble priest, announce the forgiveness of your sins. He doesn't say, I forgive. I hear your confession. He says, you know what my priest always says? Each priest is kind of different. He, does a prayer like, oh, Heavenly King, oh, come for the Spirit of truth, right? Okay, deacon, what would you like to confess to Christ? That's what he says. What do you want to confess to Christ? He's just a witness, and he's a counselor too, right? He can talk to me about like where I'm messing up and he's got tips and stuff like that. But you're not confessing to a man. You're confessing to Christ, and you have a witness there and a counselor who can testify and announce the forgiveness of your sins through Jesus Christ, our Lord.
All right, let's see. Okay, where were the other inquirer questions? Okay, yeah, I wanted to answer this one. So I don't have that much time. Let me see. There was one more that was okay. Let's answer this one really quick, and then I'll do the in-depth one because I've only got 10 minutes, and then I got to run. Question: what are your thoughts on the various? So also, don't send in any more super chat. We're probably not gonna be able to get to them. So unless you just want to support, then send them in. But I got to run in 10. What are your thoughts on the various different receptions of converts into the Orthodox Church? He was saying, I'm an inquirer, but this is something that's been bothering me since the beginning of my journey. Just a short, quick answer for that one. She's saying baptism.
What is it? What's been bothering him?
How some jurisdictions will receive by baptism, some will receive by chrismation, some will, so on and so forth. Converts.
Oh, because they want. I mean, don't be obsessed with. We're not rule worshipers and like formula, right? Well, like, why can't I just have the same formula at the same time? I mean, always at all times. If you look at the history of the church, because of various situations, the bishop has decided whether to receive people by baptism, chrismation, or chrismation alone. We're not papists, right? Each bishop has a decision of how to actually exercise and be judicial in doing so. I think personally, it would clear a lot of issues up if like we were just all received through baptism, but I'm not a bishop. The bishop does have the authority, right? I would say, okay, judicially, I don't think that's great. I have reasons, but it's not a sin. Okay. I think we have better reasons too, but what is, and it's not simply just whatchamacallit, an abuse of economy and stuff like that. The bishop literally has the authority to do that, and he'll be held accountable as far as how he makes his administrative decisions and stuff like that. But there isn't going to be, on administration issues of how you administer these things, a universality across the board, because that's what it means to be decentralized and conciliar. Each bishop in his diocese and area has the authority to decide how things work in their church. And so chrismation is said to complete whatever was lacking. And the other thing was we don't want to fall into donatism as well. So it's like, even if it's like, yeah, I don't think it's good, I wish everybody was baptized, but so what? What, are you going to stay out of the church? Because, I mean, I'd like it where we don't, no churches. I'd like the churches to be uniform on not serving Folgers coffee at coffee hour. How about that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good take. All right, I'm going to answer this guy's question. This will probably be the last one because I'm going to spend some time on it. This was the guy that had the Hebrews roots family member. So he says, my wife and I are inquirers. The only thing stopping us from moving forward is overcoming Torah observant Hebrew roots belief she has. Well, first off, Hebrews roots are, I mean, that's an absolute insane belief. But I can address the Torah observant piece there because a lot of their arguments stem from not reading the New Testament very well and not reading the continuity between the Old and New Testament. So I'm just going to pull up from an old sermon that I had against Zionism and dispensationalism, and I'll walk through some of the key points there that I thought were pretty good. All right, so notice in Deuteronomy 7, I don't like this translation, but whatever, I'll use it for the sake of this. When the Lord, this is a conditional promise here. When the Lord your God brings you into the land you are entering to possess and drives you out before many nations, the Hittites, Girgashites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and the Jebusites. Oh, am I sharing my screen or no? Yeah, I am. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
7 nations larger and stronger than you. And when the Lord your God has delivered them over to you and you have defeated them, then you must destroy them totally. Here's a command, right? Make no treaty with them. Oh, no, what did they do? Show them no mercy. Oh, no, what did they do? Do not intermarry with them. Guess what they ended up doing? They did. Do not give your daughters to their sons or take their daughters for your sons. They will turn your children away from following me to serve other gods, and the Lord's anger will burn against you and will quickly destroy you. So conditional promise. You'll receive the land, or I'm going to destroy you. This is what you are to do to them. Break down their altars, smash their sacred stones, cut down their Asherah poles, burn their idols in the fire, for you're a people holy to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you out of all the peoples on the face of the earth to be his people, his treasured possession. Ignore the translation I'm using here. This was obviously a Protestant sermon. Right. But anyway, let me continue on because there's a coherent point I want to make here. So conditional promise here, the Old Testament people did not keep the promise. You can see this. They were conquered by Babylon, by God's grace, obviously. Then Greece and Rome. So subsequent conquerings over and over and over again, because they fell into idolatry. They did not keep the covenant. What happened when they did not keep the covenant? Well, let's look at the fulfillment here in Romans 9, 6 through 8. Is it the flesh and blood covenant the promises are attached to? Let's find out. Romans 9, 6 through 8. It is not as though God's word had failed, for not all who are descended from Israel are Israel. Wait, what? Yeah. Not all who are descended from Israel are Israel. Wait a minute. It's not flesh and blood. It's not like a race gospel.
Not DNA.
Yeah. Nor because they are his descendants are they all Abraham's children. On the contrary, it's through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. In other words, it's not the children by physical descent who are God's children, but it's the children of the promise who are regarded as Abraham's offspring. Wait a minute. Who are the promises? Who do the promises go to? Abraham's offspring. So wait, it's the children of the promise. What's the promise? What's the promise? That's the promise to the church. That's the promise of the people of faith, right? All right. Continue on. There are a couple other verses here. Okay. And I'll wrap this up in just a moment. Romans 2, 28 through 29. A person is not a Jew who is one only outwardly, nor is circumcision merely outward and physical. No, a person is a Jew who is one inwardly. Circumcision is circumcision of the heart by the Spirit, not by the written code. So you're saying they're Torah observant. How are they an inheritor of the promises? It's not by the written code. It is by the Spirit, right, that indwells within the believers and members of the church. Such a person's praise is not from other people, but from God. Galatians 3, 7 through 9, and then again 29. This really lynches it all together. Understand then, those that have faith are children of Abraham. Scripture foresaw that God would justify the Gentiles by faith and announce the gospel in advance to Abraham. All nations will be blessed through you. Okay, so those who rely on faith are blessed along with Abraham, the man of faith. If you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. So if you belong to who? To Christ, then you are Abraham's seed. So Torah observance doesn't make any sense. The Hebrews root stuff makes zero sense. It's incoherent with what the scripture actually says. Save those. Also, you can go back through Romans and look at all the stuff where it talks about all foods are clean, so on and so forth. You can look at every statement like that. Yeah, and Hebrews, and basically everywhere in the New Testament. So I hope that's helpful. You can go back through in the stream and screenshot some of that. That's from an old talk I did on dispensationalism. And
I think Father Stephen DeYoung has some good works on kind of understanding like the law. So they don't understand what law is. They just that it's Islamic Talmudic is really what it is. It's just like bootlicking, rule worshiping. They don't understand the teleological aim is what? Love. And love is an ontological change. It's theosis, right? So that's why different laws and things and commands can be all very nuanced, right? They could be given a time, they could be conditional. There can be laws of nature itself, divine eternal laws, and they just have an inability to go through any nuance whatsoever, which is, it's not just a problem for them, but a lot of people.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I've got a hard stop at this time, but thank you so much for coming on the show, Father Deacon. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you in November at the conference. That'll be super cool. Guys, keep my wife in prayer. We've got a biopsy coming up Monday, so keep her in prayer for that. I appreciate all of you. I'm going to plug one thing, and then I'll if you have anything to plug, Father Deacon, you can do so right after. On the 28th, the next Q&A live stream, I'm actually going to have Father Stephen DeYoung on the show, and he'll be answering some questions. So he was just mentioned, so that's kind of cool.
There you go.
And that's the next show coming up. So, Father Deacon, anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you at the conference. Tickets, I think, are going to sell out pretty soon in the Florida conference, Athens and Jerusalem. So don't be a procrastinator. And also, we've had the best turnout and enrollment for the Patristic Faith Canvas University courses. That I'm going to keep the deal open a few more days. So go ahead and sign up. You can, with your local college or a college, get approval from the dean and or chair, and those could be transferable units. And you can talk to anybody that's taking the courses. Like, they're very affordable, and you get the best education that you could possibly get. So that's my plug. Awesome. And pray for the monastery up here. Absolute success. Yeah.
Praise God. Yeah, I'm excited about that. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah. All right, Ben, thank you so much, brother.
Absolutely. And thank you all so much for watching. God bless.